Hi everyone, it's Missy, and today I'm going to can the rest of the peaches. As you can see, we had a good sized crate, and I'm down to the last 10. So I'm going to show you how to do it, and we are going to do it the hot pack method versus the raw pack. And over here I got my AutoCanner plugged in, and it's ready to go. And you can see I have 4-pint jars in there, and yes, I do see that a couple have fallen over. And with the pint jars, I've noticed in this AutoCanner too that the water level just wants to make them float, so I just have to leave them be. But I'm going to turn this and lock the lid, and then I'll preheat those in a little bit. And then I have my pot of boiling water because we have to skin the peaches. So I have the pot of boiling water, the ice water bath, and then this will be the Fruit Fresh mixture. So I use the Ball Fruit Fresh Produce Protector. And I don't follow the directions on the canister itself. And I mentioned this in another video, but I never really showed it. Is that I make sure to measure it out. So in 1 to 2 quarts of water, I mix 1 tablespoon of produce protector, and I'm just going to add just a little bit more. And so in a gallon you would do 2 tablespoons. And this should help prevent the peaches from turning brown so quickly. And then all I have to do is stir that in, and a nice slotted spoon works well for handling the peaches from one bowl to another. But all I am doing is dissolving the Fruit Fresh. And then of course I have a bowl for the peels and the pit, and then after I've been slicing and everything, they just all go back into that Fruit Fresh protector, so that way they get protected from the oxidization. Here I have a syrup. I'm going to be doing a light syrup, which is 2 1/4 cups of sugar that you see already in my pot, and then we are going to add 5 1/4 cups of water. So that should yield approximately 6 1/2 cups of syrup. And we're also going to be putting the peaches in here and warming them. I noticed a lot of YouTube videos, people don't do this, but I do believe that it helps in the canning process. And they do float a little, but I don't believe they float as much, but we'll see how it all goes. And as you can see, we got the syrup. I'm just added the water, and I've just been stirring to dissolve the sugar. And I have that over medium-high heat. And we're just going to keep this going till it comes, it's kind of simmering a little, but we'll now be ready to do the peaches. I'm taking the peaches now, and I'm putting 2 at a time into the boiling water. These peaches are really, really ripe. They come to the end of the crate, they usually ripen pretty quick on me. And so I'm just going to leave them in there for 30 seconds, but 30 to 60 seconds is just fine. I'm also making sure to watch them and take my slotted spoon occasionally and make sure that all the sides of the peaches are touching the boiling water. Just rolling them around a bit helps. But like I said, you don't even have to score these. They were so ripe, and the peels just wanted to slip right off. Unlike my other video when I made peach jam and the peaches weren't ripe enough and the peel wanted to stick to the peach flesh. So when my 30 seconds are up, I just take the peaches and transfer them to the ice water bath, and this stops the cooking process. You want to be able to also have the flesh kind of condense or contract or pull away from the peels to make it easier, and you don't want to grab a hot peach either, you want to grab a cool one. So as you can see, I just have it, all I have to do is take my thumb and the peel just comes right off as slick as a whistle. I was so happy because it makes my job so much easier. So I'm just removing as much of the peel as I can, and then I will have to put it into the Fruit Fresh to make sure that it doesn't start turning brown on me, because as soon as that peel comes off, the peach does start turning darker because of the oxygen in the air. It's absorbing that, and that's what makes it turn brown, just like apples and other fruits. And I get really picky about getting all the peel off just because I don't like eating it. It's very rubbery after you can them. And so it doesn't taste good. So if you can get as much of the peel off at this point in time, the better. I also only do 2 peaches at a time when I'm canning by myself. When I do a large batch of peaches, I usually can with my mom or somebody else, and then we can keep somebody will keep transferring the peaches to the boiling water to the ice water bath while someone else is just peeling and cutting the peaches, and that really helps the process go a lot quicker. But being that I only had 10 peaches left, I'm doing it on my own. Just make sure that you don't bite more than you can chew, because if you do have a pile of peaches in the boiling water and then you transfer into the ice water, you'll soon find out that you're getting clogged up. So just do, as if you can, just 2, maybe 3 at a time if you're really quick, and then just work at a steady pace and everything should be just fine. And if you do them in a small batch like I am, 10 peaches at a time, you'll find out that you can take a break in between. And if your peaches are ripening really quick, I wish I had put these in the refrigerator, because that slows down the ripening process too. And this last one, as you can see, I'm having a hard time getting the peel off. It's not because the peel doesn't want to come off, it's because when I put my thumb in, it dents the flesh on the inside. And I finally had to take a knife and just cut it in half, and then hopefully get the rest of it off around the stem after I did that. And when I'm cutting around half like that, I'm following the seam of the peach, and the pit just pulls right out. Make sure to put it, like I said, in the Fruit Fresh again to make sure that nothing starts browning on you. But yeah, you just slide your knife around. The pit will stop the knife from going all the way through, and all you have to do is just take your thumbs in the stem and pull it apart, and it should pull apart really easy if it's right. The next part I like to do is take the red center out, and a melon baller works out the best for me. Sometimes you can use a regular spoon, but as you can see, the melon baller can really cut into the peach and get a lot of that red, hard, stringy stuff out of the peach. And you don't have to remove this. I do, because I just don't like eating that part. I think it's tough to chew. And I've seen a lot of people just leave that part in. It looks pretty, but it's another thing where I like to have my stuff taste good, and I know on pictures and stuff it does look pretty, but the melon baller or a knife or a spoon, you can get a lot of that out with. And I'm just going to keep continuing doing this with all the peaches, putting them in the boiling water bath, to the ice water bath, to the Fruit Fresh, and then cutting them in half. And that's all the further I'm going to cut these. I'm not going to cut them into quarters. You can if you want. But once I have them all cut in half, like you see there, it's ready to go into the syrup. And my magnet keeps getting stuck to my spoon. So I just transfer them one at a time into the syrup, because I don't want to make a mess by having them splash in. And the instructions say that you should only cook them for about a minute in the syrup, or until heated through. I found out that it takes longer than a minute for my peaches to heat through all the way. And you can test this by, somebody told me, sticking a toothpick in there like you do potatoes or a skewer or something. These peaches are so ripe though, you could do that without even putting them in a syrup. So I'm just judging by looks, appearance, to determine if they're cooked all the way through. And also, when I'm putting these peaches into that syrup, it was boiling when I put it in there, but the cold food is stopped the syrup from boiling, and when it comes back up to a boil, then I figure that everything must be heated through. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking my spoon and pushing the peaches down into the syrup. I want to make sure that they're fully submerged, that way they can heat through properly and soak up as much liquid as possible. Because the reason why peaches float in the jar is they're full of air, and the more liquid or syrup or water that they contain, they won't float as much in the jar. That's at least the science principle behind it. And if they float a little, that's okay. It's more appearance than anything else. You do want to keep your peaches below the syrup level in canning, because if they are above the syrup in the jar, they will turn brown on top because they're touching the air again. But I don't know if they're safe to eat or not. I have, but these peaches are usually gone within a few months. I mean, I'm not keeping these for over a year. But just keep turning the peaches. I like to stir them in the syrup just to make sure that they get as absorbed or covered as much syrup around the peaches as possible. And once they are heated through, we are ready to go get our jars. And don't they look lovely? I love that golden color. I think they're so pretty, and I know they're going to taste absolutely delicious. By this point, my jars have preheated in my AutoCanner. And I like to do, if I can, 1 jar at a time. And all I do is I keep the rest of the jars in the canner so they stay warm. And then I work, like I said, in batches. And it works out really well if you're just one person to do 1 jar at a time. If you're more ambitious, you can do them all at once. But I don't want my peaches to be out of the liquid because they'll be soaking up air then. So if I can move the peaches to 1 jar and then quick fill it with liquid, that also helps with the floating of the peaches. Because I was strapped for time though, I did decide to do the 3 jars, and I realized that there was only going to be so many, and I also thought I was running a little low on syrup, but I turned out to be just fine. And as you can see, I have all my canning supplies set up, and I'm just transferring the peaches one at a time with a skewer. You're not supposed to use metal utensils in the jar, so I just make sure that they're upside down so that little cavity in there is facing down, and then I just start stacking them on top of each other. And you want to pack these as much as you can into the jar, simply because they will float and they kind of fit together like a jigsaw puzzle after they've been canned, and you have this huge space at the bottom. But I'm just trying to do 1 at a time as carefully as I can. And if you're doing quarters, you probably don't have to worry so much that they're facing upside or like this. But for the half, the USDA says you should have them facing this way. I don't know if it's because of how they cook or if it's because they can better this way or they're heated through more evenly. I'm not sure, but I just am really being nitpicky also because I want to bring a jar to the fair. So, and the fair is almost coming. Yay! Our fair is one of the last fairs in our state. It is the weekend actually after our state fair, and it's in September. So I get to do a lot of canning projects for that, and I should bring you guys to the fair. Ours is really, really small, but it is kind of neat to go and see other county fairs, so hopefully I can bring you guys with this year. And after I had done all these peaches and I filled the jars, you'll see at the end that the 1 jar that's sitting there without any syrup in it, it did float on me, because I'm sure the syrup, you can see like there's a little, the syrup's kind of gathering at the bottom of the jar. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but there's like this little thin set of yellow liquid on the bottom. It's because the syrup is draining out of the peaches to the bottom of the jar, and the top ones are filling with air. So I was not happy about that. And I only got about 2.5 jars of peaches. I figure about 3 peaches a jar, but I did have to cut some bad spots out of a couple of them as I was going through. And I'm just using standard narrow pint jars, narrow neck pint jars. You can use wide mouth too. So my jars are all full, and now I put my funnel up and I'm taking my ladle and I'm ladling the syrup in. And with peaches you want to have a 1/2 inch headspace at the top, but you want to get enough syrup in and then go in there and with your wooden skewer and try to poke out as much bubbles as you can. with the cavity upside down like that, the air, it like makes an air pocket. So I try to jiggle the peaches around the best that I can so that way that air pocket is released, and then I'll adjust the head space with more syrup. But right now I'm trying to get all the syrup in the jar so that way they are covered before I get a little nitpicky on my head space. And another thing with these wooden skewers is that, like I said, the peaches are so ripe you can see holes in the peaches of where I've put my skewer in. And that's because they just are so ripe, but they're so delicious because I had to try one. And now I'm just adjusting my headspace. And I like that little measurer tool that Ball Canning has in their accessory kit. You can use the handle sometimes to go around the edges and get the air bubbles out if you don't want to use a wooden skewer. I found it works better with jams and jellies more than it does with things like peaches and green beans, simply because it's very, very wide and it doesn't slide as well in between the jar and the product that you're canning. But my arm got in the way, but if you can see, it is 1/2 inch. And then I had my lids over to the side. They were simmering away, and I took a damp cloth and was wiping the rims off. Peach syrup and peaches are very, very sticky, so you want to make sure that those rims are as clean as possible in order for the lid to seal properly on your jars. And then I just take a lid and place it on top. And then I'll screw on a rim so it's fingertip tight. And then these jars are going to go back into the AutoCanner. And then we'll be ready to can. Once everything is in the AutoCanner, I shut and lock the lid, and then we are going to select the fruit setting, and then recipe number 5, and start. And this will can for about 55 minutes, and then they'll be all set. And I had to try one of the jars of peaches. I did get 3, but I ended up only with 2 now because I forgot I didn't film the end of the video before I dug in, and they were really, really good. So that's how you can peaches. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. Otherwise, have a great day, everybody. Bye.